Hi, everybody. It's me, Rabbi Roth. I'm here with Morah Connie Reichman, who is an expert baker par excellence. And we're really excited because one of the best holidays for baked goods is coming up, Shavuot. And Shavuot, we're supposed to eat all kinds of dairy products. And the best is like if you can have really good dairy baked goods. So, Morah Reichman, Connie, welcome to my kitchen. And so excited to see your
Welcome
kitchen.
to my kitchen as well. I know it doesn't look very big, but like I'm just promising you that I tried to figure it out last night, and I'm pretty sure that from this small area in the last 20 years, I have baked thousands and thousands of cookies and hundreds of cakes.
And I've been very fortunate to taste a lot of them, so thank you.
So you're welcome. So, not to worry if you don't have a dedicated baking area like I have. It's fine. It's not that big. It's not that big a deal with this particular dough. It's very, very versatile. This cookie is called kishmish yaneh, and kishmish means raisin. My parents come from a community of Jews called Nashdidan. They call themselves Nashdidan, which literally means my people, literally, in Aramaic, because they speak Aramaic. There are not that many of them left, maybe a few thousand Jews, mostly my parents' age, who still speak Aramaic. Funny thing is that most of the people who speak Aramaic today are not Jewish. Assyrian Christians and all different types of people, but not Jews. These Jews came from an area of Iran called Urmia. Many of the Persian Jews are familiar with this area. It borders Azerbaijan, which used to be part of the Soviet Union, Turkey, Iraq, and they date themselves back to Galut Bavel, okay, to 2,600 years ago.
Wow.
The Jews were exiled from the land of Israel when the Babylonians destroyed the first temple. So that's how old, by tradition, that's how old they feel their community is. So they lived there for a long time, but then around 1918, there was a lot of trouble. That's World War I, of course, we all know. And there were attacks on the Assyrian Christians as well and other Jews, and they started to disperse. While they lived there, they were known as either jewelers or textile merchants, probably because they couldn't own lands like a lot of Jews elsewhere, right? My grandfather happened to be a textile merchant. My mother's family ended up in Baku, the capital of Azerbaijan, that was part of the Soviet Union. My father's family ended up in Tbilisi, Georgia, also a large community of Nashdidan Jews. My parents befriended a whole group of Jews here in New York 50 years ago, who were all from this Eidah, from this community, all spoke Aramaic. Some of them were from Iraq and walked to Israel. Now, many in 1918 did travel directly to Israel. I recently did that research, by the way. But many others ended up in other places and only reached Israel later on, my parents in 1949. They ended up being thrown out of parts of the Soviet Union during Stalin's purges back in the 30s and ended up living in Tehran in the same, again, refugees, all in the same area, and then eventually arrived in Israel, where they're in contact with other people who speak Aramaic, but not that many people anymore. So let's start. I can screen share. Let's see. I can, hold on. I'm gonna share the recipe with everybody. Okay. So you see, pretty basic ingredients, and very flexible. Margarine or butter, a cup of sour cream. So of course it's better when it's dairy. I'm not gonna lie, anything's better with butter.
Yeah. But sour cream makes it great.
Yeah, of course. And a teaspoon of vanilla. Again, the eggs are also flexible. I wrote extra large if you only have large, so you could put in 3. I only took large eggs today. That's all I have in the house. And 1 yolk, which is separate, okay, that you're going to put on top at the end, okay? So right now we're going to just crack open 3 of the eggs. A cup of sugar, 4 cups of flour, again, all-purpose flour, but you're going to be really flexible with that. Let me explain to you how every recipe in my aunt or my mother's cookbook looks like, okay? It never says the amount of flour, no. What it says is add flour as much as the dough takes.
That's right.
That's
I understand. I make challah, and I know sometimes you have to add extra flour.
Exactly. Remember that even the type of butter or margarine that people are using around, I mean, I lived in Israel, the margarine was totally different than the margarine here, okay? The butter was totally different. So, you know, you have to feel dough. You have to really get a feel for dough. And we're going to see what it looks like at the end so you have an idea of that, okay? On the baking powder as well. So the filling, you have a few alternate things. Let's do the dough first together, okay? And I'm going to put in the first 5 ingredients, which is the butter. Now, I didn't cut it up into pieces because it's been sitting out here, so it's really soft. My suggestion with a lot of my ingredients, I like to weigh. I didn't give you the weight for flour. With the butter, I weighed it, so I know I have 7 ounces. I'm going to put that all in to my bowl.
If you unshare the screen, then people will get a better...
Oh, sorry. Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. We should say that if you would like the recipe afterwards, we can always email it to people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I put in the butter. As you can tell, this is a KitchenAid mixer. It has a paddle attachment on it, but let's face it, this recipe dates back at least 100 years. Just from my family, I know that. And we don't have a long family tree. Like, we don't know everybody from way back when. So you can mix it by hand, because I'm pretty sure they didn't have a mixer.
I'm sure they mixed it by hand.
You know, and in nursery school, we make lots of cookie dough by hand, so it's not a problem at all. Okay?
There you go.
And we have the cup of sour cream. Okay. I'm going to put that in. Obviously, full fat is the best. What else can I say? You know, that's obvious.
That's better. You're baking anyway, so.
Yeah, a teaspoon of vanilla. I like to use the pure vanilla extract. I think that always makes a difference.
Yeah.
3 eggs. These happen to be large, but okay, so it'll take less flour. Whatever. We're not going to get crazy over that.
It's 3 full eggs, right? And then the last one you separate just for the yolk.
Exactly. Yes, I probably have to change the recipe. I kind of did that in the last minute. I'll adjust that before you send that out. Okay. So I have the 3 eggs in here, and then I'm going to put in a cup of sugar. Notice I have them in canisters here. It is a lot easier. It's just because you know, when you bake a lot, it's a lot easier to have them out in a canister.
Yeah. That's do I.
Okay. Okay, and now I also find, you know, as with any hobby you have or anything you do, it's always easier to have the right tools. You don't have to get crazy, but it is so much easier when you have more than 1 teaspoon, you know, in terms of measuring spoons. Because now, you know, I put in the vanilla and now it's kind of wet and I don't want to stick it in my baking powder. So it's always easier to have 2 of those. And when everything is out, now I didn't do it today just because of the recording, but it is easier if you already have it pre-measured. Okay, that's always easier to do. All right. I have it pretty well mixed. So I'm going to put in my baking powder and I'm going to start with the flour. Automatically, I'm going to put in at least 3 cups of flour because I know it's going to take at least 3 cups.
That's a lot. That's good.
Turn it down so you don't see flying flour.
This could be called the Great British Baking Show Jewish Persian Edition.
All right, that's a name. kind of rolls off your tongue too. Okay. So that's 3 cups right there. And I know I'm going to need 4. Okay, and I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you how it looks. And then, of course, you know, just like all of our professionals, I have a ready-made one also, because I already baked it before. So you can see that it's a little bit ragged. Okay, hold on, I'm going to show you. Okay, so it kind of looks like that. And I'm going to feel it. Okay, and it feels to me a drop sticky as I can see by my fingers. Okay, so I'm going to mix it a little more. Always better to err on less flour because you could always add. Okay, it's very hard to like add wet ingredients. All right, hold on, I'm going to put it back in. All right, and now we're going to switch to the other table as I wipe off my hands. Hold on. Here we go. 1 second. I have my table set up right over here. And you can see, I hope, hold on. Right there.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. I may have to sit so you can see me as well. I never sit baking, just so you know. Nobody ever has the leverage like that to roll out anything sitting down. But just so you see, look at the dough. It is so beautiful. It is so amazing. And it was not with too much extra flour, you know. It really depends on the size of your eggs and, you know, what type of sour cream. If it was very thick or if it was a low fat, it'll be a little more watery, or depends on the brand and so on. Well, this is a nice dough. It's not dry, but it's not sticking to my fingers. Okay, so that's perfect. I'm gonna divide it into 3 balls. If you want them smaller, you can. It's just faster. I did preheat to 350 degrees. That's standard. I do have a good baking sheet. Okay. It's a good professional baking sheet. It's worth investing in stuff like this if you're going to bake. I have a nonstick mat, but not necessary. Regular parchment paper is perfectly fine. And I'm going to roll it out. Try to roll your dough out gently into a rectangle, because it is going to be a roll, right? You're going to roll it up. So you're going to roll it out to a pretty long rectangle, because you're going to get at least, oh, I don't know, 12 cookies out of each one of these, for sure. I do. And I make it thin, but I don't make it too thin that it's going to stick or whatever. You see, it did not stick at all. So at the end, you have to stand, because what are you going to do? I don't have enough strength to do it sitting down. I'm going to bring it out this way. So you see, I'm going to estimate right now that this rectangle is about, I'm going to say 15 inches by 8, something like that. It's not such a big deal if it's not precise. All right.
So look, you're rolling it to get to be pretty thin.
Yeah, it's not even that thin. Look, I just want to make sure that I can pick it up nicely like that.
Nice.
Because I want to roll it. I don't want it falling apart. I don't want it to get holes either.
Right. Right.
Okay. You know, I have this younger brother. Of course, he's not so young anymore, but he turned his nose up at anything. So my mother would just cut out circles out of it and spread some cinnamon sugar, and it was a sugar cookie, and it was fine. Now, I must have about 50 cookie cutters in this kitchen. And I never saw a cookie cutter in my mother's kitchen. She only used a glass. It was always round, but it was still delicious. Now I gave you two options for fillings. The traditional one, the one that my mother made, was brushing. This is safflower oil, but you could use whatever, vegetable oil, canola oil. And she would spread it across the whole, rectangle of dough. And then sprinkle the cinnamon sugar. And I like to put plenty because I happen to love cinnamon. So it depends on who you're baking for, but I think this is, it doesn't have the dough doesn't have a ton of sugar, and you can even probably reduce that sugar if you wanted to. So it doesn't come out very...
Connie, that's a mixture of cinnamon and sugar that you made.
Yeah, yeah.
Because you can only, it looks like cinnamon from here, so I just want to make sure.
I like to have it on hand already. So it's easier to pre-mix that, especially if you bake a lot. It's nice to have around. So, and it's also nice to have it in one of these things that you can sprinkle it evenly. Otherwise, it's hard to make it even if you're just sprinkling it with a spoon or something. As I said, the right tools will really help. Now, if you didn't want to do the oil, you can also do jam. Whatever jam you have in the house is fine. That's what people used to do years ago. They didn't, make a specific jam. So you would loosen up the jam a little bit, and instead of the oil, you can spread jam across the whole thing before you put the cinnamon sugar. So that's another option, all right? Then I have chopped walnuts. Again, it's easier. Of course, you can stop and go chop your walnuts, but it's easier to pre-chop them, which is what I did. I found a serrated knife is very, very helpful with that. The food processor, sometimes it just chops it up too fine, and there's too much of that, dusty kind of nuts. So I like really just chopped nuts. That's the way it's meant to be, and raisins. I have dark raisins, but if you like the golden raisins, go ahead, use them. Of course, they're a little bit sweeter, but fine. It's not a very sweet cookie, so it's fine. And I sprinkle that across the whole thing. Just remember, if you put too little, then it kind of loses it. If you put too much, you may find a lot of it on the tray, but it's okay. Nothing wrong with that. They taste good like that as well. Okay, now, so I like to be generous with it though. As you could see, it's pretty much all over. Remember, the cookies are cut like this. So make sure you're going to the end with it, and so that every cookie will have lots of nuts and raisins in it. And then we're going to start rolling it, okay? And then I'm going to show you two different techniques. So roll it gently. I'm rolling it once. It's going to be twice, at least 3 times. And then I'm going to give you 2 options. I'm going to give you the usual option that most people do. Whoops, need a nice sharp knife. Hold on. Yeah. Be very careful with that. So the usual thing that people do is they make slits. I like to make them on the diagonal because it looks nice, about every 1.5 inches. And they make slits across so it will be easier to cut them apart when they come out of the oven, okay? So you're not going all the way down. You're just making a slit across the top, okay? That's why you need such a sharp knife, okay? Clearly not sharp enough. All right, now I'm making them kind of on the diagonal. I'm not measuring, whatever, Not a bakery. Nobody's comparing them to anything else. You know, you have to have fun baking. If you're like first of all, it's not a cake that you throw it on, you know, that if you aired a little bit on the baking pad or whatever, it could not rise. This isn't the same thing. So it's a lot more, you know, it's not a lot more easygoing. Now, that's the first option. Put it on the tray, bake it about 30 minutes. Put the egg yolk over the top so it gets nice and golden. Put it on the tray and put it just like that. About 30 minutes, it should get golden. You'll see also because it'll turn brown on the bottom and it won't stick anymore. Okay, that's how you know that it's ready. When it comes out of the oven, it's still warm. Slice it all the way down and take it apart into cookies. That's the traditional way. But my mother did it a different way. And you know how it is when you grow up in your mother's kitchen and you're just eating something a certain way, it has a certain taste to it. And that's what you're used to. So now, my mother didn't have her mother around for too many years. So she had to kind of figure things out when she got married. And then very quickly they moved to another country. I was born in Brazil. I wasn't born in Israel. So she was alone, right? a young bride having to figure it out. So she did it a different way, and we're all used to that way. What she did was cut it all the way down into cookies. All right? And then she put each individual cookie on the tray. A little bit harder even because the filling could come apart. But that's how she did it, into separate cookies. It puffs up, it puffs out more. Okay, it becomes much puffier because it's not together. And we happen to prefer it. So what you could do is, since it's 3 balls of dough, you can try one at a time. Try it one way, see how you like it, then try the next ball a different way. And you don't have to bake it the same day. You can leave it in the fridge until the next day or whenever. You could probably bake it any time of the week. You can wrap it in cellophane, put it in a Ziploc bag, label it. That's very important. You don't realize that you forget what you have in the freezer. And then take it out, defrost it, and bake it another time. So that's also an option. So bake each roll and see how you like it.
How long will it take to defrost, you think?
No, I don't think very long. So you can defrost dough in the fridge. You know, it's getting warm, so you'd want to defrost it in the fridge. So even if you wanted to take it out at night and stick it in the fridge, in the morning you'll be able to. It's a very soft dough. It's not like, you know, some doughs become very hard, you know, but this doesn't become that hard. It's pretty pliable. So I did it, in fact. I had the batch that I did before, I had, I only baked 1 row and I froze the other 2, and they've been in the fridge since last night. I'm going to show you the finished product now. All right?
Yes, yes. Kishmishana.
Kishmishane in a cookie jar that one of the parents bought for me. And it was such a coincidence that it matches my 2 other jars. So very, very useful and looks great.
Oh, so the pieces look pretty big.
So I cut mine a little bit bigger, you know, last week, but you can make them small. You can just make them smaller. It doesn't even have to be on the diagonal. I was just trying to do it quick, and my mother used to make them big like this, actually. I'm going to show them up. You could see all the raisins and nuts inside. That was baked separately. These were baked separately. It probably won't be as big. It won't expand as much if you bake it in a row. I'm pretty sure it won't be this big. Okay? And of course, it's best, as all dry cookies, it's best with a cup of tea. It's meant to be like that. It is a dry cookie. And this is how they used to eat it, you know, having a cup of tea with their cookies. So, you know, I wish I could send some over to you. So you have
I know. My mouth is watering. But you know what I find? What I find so funny about this is that this reminds me a lot of something that my mother used to make, which the dough was a cream cheese dough, and it was rolled up in smaller pieces. And do you know what I'm referring to?
Rugelach?
Yes.
I have made rugelach with cream cheese. It's delicious.
Yeah, it's amazing. So, but these look to the naked eye, these could look like a little bit larger rugelach, but they're not. They're Asian.
It's a little different. The dough is a little bit different than the rugelach dough, but I have to say I have made rugelach dough, and once you eat them dairy, it's so hard to go back to par.
You can never go back to par. So probably with quiche mishya now also, you have to eat them dairy.
Yeah, although, my mother made them par for a long time as well, and we love them no matter what. And she didn't bake a lot of things because she was more of a cook, and I'm now writing her cookbook. So I have now up to like 43 recipes that I've uploaded onto a website called Create My Cookbook. And now I've decided, since my mother's taking a really long time to write her memoir, I've decided to make it kind of a memoir for her also, and write something about her family history as well, and something about a little bit for each food, each recipe, of my memories of my childhood and growing up with these foods. And there are a lot of traditional Nashtidan foods that really are not some of them may be similar to Persian foods, but they're not exactly the same. And there are a lot of things that I grew up with, and some of the things my mother hasn't made in years, but they're in her old cookbook, and I cooked with her one summer and wrote down measurements, since there were no measurements at all on anything. So so it's coming together. Hopefully it'll be done soon. So that's been a fun project. And I've been researching a little bit about the community also. So there's a Facebook page, and there's even an old cookbook, a Najdidan cookbook, which includes these cookies. And there is someone in Israel who's been uploading the recipe slowly because it's not in print anymore.
Right.
So it's fun.
Wow. Well, it was beautiful to watch. I wish there was a way for us to all taste it, but this is a perfect intro to getting ready for Shavuot. And thank you so much for sharing your family history and your family recipe and your kitchen and your delicacies. And maybe someday we'll get to try your quiche mishana in person.
Oh, I would love that. With a cup of tea.
Yes. Well, toda rabah. Thank you so much, and Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach. Bye, everybody. Bye.